Oh, we've got Canadians. Okay. It's so weird. There's about a 45-second delay from Zoom to Facebook. So it's a little strange for me. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our second session in the 2020 Natural Pet Care Summit. And this morning, I am so excited to have Maria Ringo joining me this morning. Maria is a homeopath, and her experience helping people and pets with nutrition and natural medicine began over 35 years ago in Ann Arbor, Michigan. She's a member of the faculty of the Ontario College of Homeopathic Medicine and a licensed member of the College of Homeopaths in Ontario. She's also the co-founder and director of healthcare for Carnivore handcrafted pet food. And after over 35 years in practice, like me, she has recently retired. I'm so proud of her.
It's great.
You know what? I need to get over here, which is going to make my life a lot easier. Okay. So Maria, great title for today. The road to good health is paved with good intestines. I absolutely love it.
Yep, very true. I love it. This is one of the most interesting areas of study. Honestly, Judy, if I were 25 years younger, I would go back to school and really study hard on the GI system and microbiome. The whole field is exploding, no pun intended, or maybe, and with research and information that we had never known before. It makes such a difference to our lives, and I'm really excited to chat with you about it.
This is awesome. I'm trying to, you guys got to give me a minute. I'm trying to figure out how to get rid of the sound from my
Oh, you've got a reverb.
Facebook. I've got both things coming into my headphones at the same time, and it's about to make me
that's awful.
want to shoot myself. All right. There we go. Okay.
Just hear yourself once now.
Oh my gosh. I'm trying to talk and hearing what happened a minute ago. It was a little bit nuts. Okay. So, okay, everybody, I think I'm good to go now. Okay. So Maria, this is an amazing title. And as a homeopath, I'm sure that this plays into therapy for most of your patients. And as a food therapist, I can certainly say that the intestines are kind of important for what I do.
Right.
So what is it? What is the major role of the intestine besides digesting our food?
We think of the intestines as the poop chute, right? Okay, it goes in and it goes out the intestines, right? It's so much more than that. And the more I study and read it, the more respect I have for the intestines, honestly, in every mammal, every being. So when we're talking today, we're talking about humans, we're talking about dogs. Sometimes we're going to focus a little bit on animals more, but really it's all, the role of intestines is not just to extract nutrients from food and excrete waste, but the intestines also help distribute those nutrients through capillary networks. So we have to keep that really, clean and going well. It helps balance our hydration. It helps run our immune system. 80% of our immune system is located in the gut. And we forget that, like immune system, we think of runny noses and stuff. No, it's all in the gut. And I want to talk to you about how that works.
Yes, absolutely.
Protecting and supporting the immune system is a huge part of the gut. Salt balance, which is part of our hydration balance, that is something that happens in the large intestine. So the intestines are made of different parts, right? And really the entire intestinal system starts in the mouth with salivary glands and ends at the anus in the actual poop chute. So the small intestine, which is where the food goes after the stomach, is more for extracting the nutrients, right? And making sure that all possible nutrients are pulled out of our food and everything's broken down into amino acids or fats or carbs. But a huge number of very important immune globule, like white blood cells. I'm trying to sort of not be too technical here. Between you and me, it's a little different, I know. But the white blood cells, like secretory IgA, live and reproduce in the small intestine. So if you've got some sort of allergic reaction going on or some sort of food intolerance going on that's creating havoc in the small intestine, your secretory IgA white blood cells are not going to be up to par and you may be more prone to infections, right? This goes for our animals too.
Can I ask you a question? Because I had an unusual case of a caissant who had bloody stools, mucousy stools, soft stools, straining his entire life, 10, 11 years. He finally passed after an extremely bad bout, but she finally got testing on this dog when he was about 10 years old and found that he was immunoglobulin deficient.
Yep.
So is that a genetic issue? Is that something that's fixable?
Well, I would say it could be a genetic issue. It very well could be. Genetics get passed down in every aspect of our bodies and our animals' bodies. However, as you were talking, I'm thinking, yeah, I bet you there was something in this immune system that just was not able, something in the intestine was not able to support the immune system. And I mean, the dog, you know, it's past, it's conjecture at this point, but I would say the answer is it's probably an intestinal issue. So much of this stuff is, and the answer is probably yes. It could have been fixable. My personal experience with those kinds of situations with people and animals, it is very often fixable, if not curable, at least mediated. Much better.
I mean,
right?
this woman had gone to the nth degree trying things to fix this dog's guts.
Yeah.
But I'm getting more and more of these cases, and I'm steering us off topic. We're going to get back to where we were. But I'm getting more and more of these cases. And I have one coming up with someone from, I think, Denmark next week, where these dogs, they've gone through every protein. And the dogs just keep reacting and keep reacting and keep reacting. And we can't find anything that works for their gut. This particular one, she's now feeding horse meat, which in Europe is commonplace. It's not here. But these people, they've gone through alligator, they've gone through emu, they're using, you know, they just go from one novel protein to the next and the dog will be good for 2 to 3 weeks. And then they're a train wreck all over again.
Right. And you know why, Judy? I'm just going to say that immune system's on fire. That's the way it's on fire. And it's overreacting. So it's blown up and it calms down a tiny bit. Okay, that alligator protein's gone now. That's one strange xenobiotic molecule that I don't understand, says the immune system. But then here comes whatever, kangaroo. What's this? Don't know. Oh no, it's an intruder. It's an intruder. Firing, firing, firing. The immune system's role is to kick out invaders. Right. That's what it does really, really well. And do you know where that gets trained? In the gut.
Exactly.
Right? And this is in the large intestine. So we've been talking about the small intestine. Okay. But people forget, maybe we just don't know, the large intestine is where 99% of the microbiome of our bodies resides. So that poor animal, the immune system is on fire. Something's going on. This is just like, I don't know this animal, right? But 99% of the microbiome is in the large intestine of this animal. That's on fire. There's something not going on right there. And I'm going to suggest for that particular case that the microbiome is off. It's the microbiome. And what is the microbiome? Okay, let's take a step back.
Yeah. So now we'll go back to where we were.
You and I always talk, Judy, no matter what we're doing. The microbiome is the ecosystem of bacteria and yeasts and other microorganisms that live in, on, and around each body. It's unique to each body. And fun fact, when we didn't know a whole lot about microflora, gut microflora, the scientists thought they were like plants. That's how we get the word microflora.
Ah.
Isn't that something? But the analogy holds pretty well.
Sure.
Because each bacterium, each microbe, because it's not just bacteria, there's actually beneficial yeasts and other organisms. Each microorganism has its own preference for habitat. It has its own toxicity or helpfulness to its host, just like plants, right? So it's a really good analogy, but just a little fun fact there about what we know about it. Here's another little fun fact. Talking about the role of the intestines in our health and in every being's health. Did you know, like serotonin, that's the happiness hormone in humans, right? Did you know that 95% of our serotonin is produced in the cells of our gut?
Really?
That's a whole nother seminar, honestly.
So here we are thinking that we're making it in our brain and, we're spitting it out from up there. No.
How is it made in our gut? It's made with the assistance, and absolutely cannot be without it, with the assistance of our microbiome. So that poor animal, and we'll go back to that poor animal with the immune system on fire, that immune system cannot balance itself because the microbiome is off. There's something not right. The microbiome, 95% of which resides in the large intestine, needs good bacteria. It's got bad bacteria. The good bacteria and the bad bacteria are constantly having a turf war. It's all it is. It's a turf war. Here's another little fun fact. Antibiotics are created by pharmaceutical companies. They breed in these great big vats bacteria, take the waste products and byproducts of those bacteria, refine them to make them into little tablets that you can then take or give to your animal if there's a serious infection. That's why there's so many different kinds of antibiotics and classes of antibiotics, because there's so many different kinds and classes of bacterium. And the bacteria their waste products can kill other bacteria. So they create antibiotics. And that's why only certain antibiotics kill only certain bacteria. That's why antibiotics don't touch viruses. There's so much to this. I know I keep digressing.
No, it's great.
Much to this. So the microbiome in that animal whose immune system is on fire needs to be fed and nurtured. And the good bacteria have been in that animal completely overtaken with bad bacteria.
Right.
What's the difference between good and bad bacteria? How they respond to the host. So everybody's is different. Little fun fact, that if you were to swab several orifices of a dog for genetic, material in their microbiome, the owner of that dog would be 95% identifiable. This is how much we swap microbiome.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Right? Your dog's DNA is probably in my nose. My dog's DNA is in my nose, and my DNA is in that dog's nose, right?
So if I have 4 dogs, does that mean we all have the same?
Well, that's a very good point. Yes and no. You're sharing back and forth, which is healthy, right? Most bacteria is beneficial, most of it. Most bacteria that's going to live on you or your dog has adapted to you and is helping you, because if it kills you, it kills its own host.
Right.
This is the thing, just to segue a little bit around COVID, and it's on everybody's mind, this horrible virus, it's true. But what that virus wants to do is adapt. Because if it can adapt to you in your lungs or your gut or wherever it's deciding to live, if it can find a way to adapt, then it doesn't kill you, it doesn't die, it has a nice source of food and everything, right? It's all happy, you're happy, it's happy, and it lives with us, just like E. coli, just like Candida, right? These are microbes that live in our bodies, live in everybody's body, they're in every dog, they're in every cat, they're in every human. But if they grow out of proportion, if they grow beyond their boundaries, they make us sick because there's too much of it. And their byproducts are not helpful to us, right?
Right.
I know, I'm ranging all.
So the big point is that we need to nurture the good guys and not nurture the bad guys. So how do we do that?
There's ways that have been known to our culture, our Homo sapiens culture, for eons. That's through making sure we eat the good guys and good bacteria, good microbes. I always say bacteria because that's most of them.
Right.
But good microbes are actually found in nature, and then they get ingested through the nose. The human nose has something like 900 different varieties of bacteria that should be there. And these are the guys that filter out what's coming in. They suss it out. We think it's just our nose hairs. Like, it's not. And in a dog's nose, which we all know is extremely sensitive, there are billions of microbes in there sussing out what's coming in. Should that one be here? Should that one not be here? Okay, if it's not here, let's call up the immune system. Here's a bad guy coming in. It's fascinating. So wait, getting back to the topic.
I'm not the only one who sees squirrels, by the way.
This is so huge, and there's so many aspects to it that we could talk about. That I know we keep jumping from topic to topic, but it's
that's okay.
How do we keep the good microbes alive? We feed them with probiotics, right? Probiotics is just the word that means good microbes. That's all. It's a completely made up word. I don't think there's a word for bad biotics or antibiotics, I guess, is the one that kills. But
right.
You know, I hope everybody listening today knows that antibiotics will kill all the bacteria, like the good and the bad, that it can reach.
Right.
What I said about bacteria being made in big vats, antibiotics being made in big vats, they don't kill everything, but they kill a lot. And they call wide spectrum antibiotics. Those are the bacteria that are really dangerous to a lot of different beings, and they will kill all of it. So when you, what kills the microflora in that poor animal whose immune system is on fire? Stress. People forget that.
Yep.
Stress kills good microbes in your body. In fact, there have been studies that have shown that in the large intestines of people who have gone through stressful periods, now that they're studying the microbiome, different bacteria will grow during times of stress than in times of peace. So if you're stressed out, or your animal is stressed out a lot, different bacteria are going to be allowed to grow in the intestine. Those bacteria are going to grow and grow and grow. Remember what I said about the turf war? The good bacteria that you really need are going to get overtaken by that bad stress bacteria. And that can affect beings, not to be people-centric or dog-centric, but all beings, for years.
Wow. So I have to throw in a little Chinese medicine here for those wood personalities. But those wood personality dogs that we see in particular, I don't see very many wood personality cats. We do see wood personality horses, but wood personality dogs, German Shepherds, Rottweilers definitely fall into that category very, very often. And what is one of the biggest problems we see in German Shepherds? Inflammatory bowel disease and allergies, skin disease. Those dogs, and so here we have a great explanation, because those guys have liver cheese stagnation. They've got frustration. They've got all that bottled up in their liver, but that's affecting their gut, and that stress, that frustration. Border collies, cattle dogs, dogs that are used to having a job, and then you take their job away, or you don't ever give them a job. They have that same frustration. And so it's not, when we hear from Maria that stress changes the microbiome, I got to say, in the last couple of weeks, I've had so much stress. I don't even want to know what my microbiome looks like right now. I'm going to have to go take good care of it.
Yeah, you do. No, you seriously do, Judy. That makes, see how the intestines, it's so much more. You have to connect the dots with stress. We all know antibiotics will create a whole wreak havoc on the microflora.
Yes.
Poor nutrition. Did you know in the large intestine, this is where all the B vitamins are made? You know how they're made? With the cooperation of the microbiome. If your microbiome, if the good guys in your gut are not there, or not there in sufficient numbers, or if your intestines are so ruined that they can't support a good, healthy microbiome, you are not going to get calcium absorption. Calcium is absorbed in the large intestine, not the small intestine. It can only be it can only be ingested into the body through the large intestine. Your B12, your B1, your B2, vitamin K. These are, like, going back to your very first question, what's the role of the intestines? It's to manufacture vitamins. And if your intestines are shot or on fire, you're not going to get those vitamins made in sufficient quantities. You'll get a little bit because the body is amazing at adapting, but it won't be sufficient. So then you've got poor blood clotting, poor heart, you name it, it goes on and on, right?
And it's really interesting because one of the most common tests that we run on these animals with the chronic bowel disease, we send it to the Texas A&M GI lab, but we do cobalamin, folate, and TLI. Most of these animals with chronic bowel disease are going to be low in B12, and supplementing and replacing that B12 is one of the best things and easiest things that you can do for these animals. But it is, so this makes perfect sense. We don't have a good microbiome. We don't have enough good bacteria in the large intestine making the vitamins that these animals need. And I would bet if we tested for more of those, if we tested vitamin K levels in B1 and B2, we'd probably find that those are low as well. Makes perfect sense.
Doesn't it? And you might be wondering, like, okay, so the large intestines create these vitamins and help protect the immune system. And one of the things that comes to mind as I started learning about this is how does the immune system work in the intestines, right? Like, if the immune system is supposed to detect invaders, and we're talking about invaders, right? These are microbes that somehow get into our body through eating or breathing or through the skin, right? So how do I want to just talk about that for a second, because this might also help some of your patients connect the dots. The immune system is protected in the large intestine by the mucus layer, right? And the microbiome resides in the mucus layer. And something you said just now reminded me of this, that's why. So the bacteria, the yeasts, the single cell organisms that create the microbiome are only available in that mucus layer, that thick mucus layer in the intestines, so that the white blood cells if you think of it as a glass window, the white blood cells can sort of see these microbes, they get to know them, they can suss them out, so that when they get trained, this is what we mean by the microbiome trains the intestines, trains the immune system, so that later, if one of these microbes is then encountered by the white blood cells in the blood, somewhere else in the system where they don't belong, the white blood cells know, they recognize, hey, I saw this guy before, he's not supposed to be here. I love putting words into the mouths of microbes. It's how I think of it, though, because white blood cells, their job is to be vigilant. Our immune system is constantly looking out for intruders. So then they've gotten to know these microbes, and they've decided, those are good guys. These guys I better not see them in the blood. And when they do, they now recognize them. Fun fact, we have different blood types. Mm-hmm. The reason we do is because of bacteria, specifically bacteria, and some bacteria look a lot like red blood cells. And so bacteria and red blood cells both have docking stations on their outer cell wall that allow various enzymes and other things, I don't want to get too chemistry oriented here, to dock and affect them. The immune system created the blood types in order to differentiate red blood cells from various bacterium that look very much like them. Through millennia, that's how the immune system got trained by the microbiome that's been in our bodies forever. So now we have different blood types because of that. They have to be able to suss them out. So what I said about the immune system sort of looking through the mucus layer and being able to identify good guys and bad guys, part of that is how we develop blood types. Just a little fun fact there. You see how it all goes together?
Well, that's the great thing about holistic medicine. You can't just look at one thing. You have to look at how everything connects. And so now you've got my brain going. So when we have these dogs who they're eating something that their body is saying, ooh, in foreign invader, we're going to not react well to that. When we're getting those mucus coated stools, are we losing that mucus lining of the bowel?
Yep, the mucus lining is a protective layer. And when it is damaged, the first thing that happens when the intestines sort of catch fire like that, when they're suffering, that mucus layer gets sloughed off. And with it goes a huge amount of the microbiome, which then has to be replenished. So going back to your previous question, as we always do, how do we replenish that?
Right.
There are foods in nature. You don't have to take pills. They're excellent. Just like the B12 that the animal who can't manufacture you need to constantly put in that B12 and sometimes a supplement, which I think of supplements as medications, right? I think of them as temporary bridges until we can get sorted, and then we stop taking the B12 until we then know we need it again, then we can take it again. But in the meantime, you try to get it through your diet. Same thing with gut flora. So probiotics, they tend to be expensive, and they're most of them are, I mean, they're not.
Well, there's good ones and there's bad ones, and
right.
it can be very difficult to know what's what.
And exactly, and they are all the ones that you buy in a tablet. They're not harmful, but they're weak. They're born in a lab. They're born in a petri dish. They're protected, fed and watered. And so a lot of them will die in the heat and acidity of the gut when you feed it to your animal. But you can get native probiotics. That's what we call them. Native probiotics are actually in a couple of classes of foods: sprouted foods of all kinds, fermented foods of all kinds, and cultured foods. This is how we've come to do these sprouting and fermenting and culturing in our diets, because it is so beneficial. And there's lots of studies showing that lactobacillus and bifidobacteria, these are two very common strains that are very greatly found in nature. There's lots of them everywhere, and you can eat them when they come from natural foods, from kombucha or sprouted seeds, like the sprouted seeds, they're in carnivore. That's why we put them in there, because they last. They don't die right away in the heat or the acidity like something that was born in a lab and never had to face adversity, because they have had to be born in nature. They've had to fight, so to speak, and then they can be ingested. They can be actually make it to seed the gut. It's not rocket science. Like, it's actually how people and animals have kept themselves alive for millennia. Remember, in the wild, animals, carnivores, will eat the intestines of the animal that they are about ready to eat first. They will slit it open and they will eat those pre-digested grains and grasses that are in that other animal. What else is in there? Oh, I know, probiotics, because that's where they get fermented. That's where they get sprouted, if you will. You eat that plant that's got the little seed. All it takes is a day of some water and a little bit of warmth, and bravo, you've got sprouts, right? Animals are hugely, including humans, are hugely smart that way. And that's what we need. It's too bad our processed food culture has kind of erased all that.
Well, yeah.
Right?
So that brings up a good point that I'm going to ask you about. We see, for instance, dry kibbles, and they'll say that they've added probiotics or whatever. So when you read the label of the kibble bag, it lists a whole bunch of, bifidobacteria, lactobacillus, whatever. Is any of that still alive by the time it gets to our pets? Is it useful at all, or is that just a marketing thing?
Unfortunately, I'm going to say most of it's not alive, because if you've listed it on the label, this brings up another little political point. AAFCO does not allow us to state that there are probiotics in the food unless they have been added as a culture. So they're born in a lab, they're cultured in a petri dish, they are added. When they are added, I don't know, because carnivore doesn't do that. We actually don't add probiotics. They're in our ingredients. They're native probiotics. So we know after 10 years of shelf testing this and lab testing this and third-party independent labs that there are billions and billions of CFUs of probiotics still alive in our quick baked air dried product. But if it's a kibble that's been, especially if it's been really heavily processed through the extrusion process, which is what most kibble is,
Right.
there's no way. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say there's just no way that there's a whole lot of bacteria left in there. And even if they add, how do they add it at the end? If they spray it on,
I wonder if they can spray it on in their fat mixture that they're spraying on the kibble, which is oxidized and
I would
rancid.
call the company and ask them.
Yeah, where are you putting that in? Because if you're putting it in before the extrusion process, that's a very high heat process. There's no way they're surviving that.
High heat, high acidity, high pressure, all those things will kill all living things. There's nothing alive in there.
Okay, so back to our little animals who have these just guts on fire. They've got bloody stools, so they've got mucousy stools. And every single new protein that they go to within 3 weeks, these animals are breaking out with the same thing again. So obviously we have a gut that we need to heal. How, if we fed them a good, fermented or cultured or sprouted food, how long, first of all, would they have a reaction to that as well, that their large intestine would say, well, gosh, another foreign invader, I'm going to have a big problem with that. And do we just ride that out, or do we say, ooh, that caused an even bigger problem? Or do we ride it out and say, hey, if we can get through a couple, is it 3 days for the gut to change? Is it a week? Is it 3 weeks?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And of course, we get customers asking us that a lot. Every animal is different. Always have to, an animal that has suffered for 10 years, like your example, with a gut on fire, is not going to be better the next day after starting a proper diet, whatever that proper diet is, right? You have to give it time. The guts are exhausted. The whole immune system is exhausted. Remember, it's the immune system that's on fire. The gut will heal more quickly than the immune system. Everything has to be built up. So you're going to add to this poor animal, guts on fire, immune system on fire, no mucus layer left, no protective layer left, probably ulcerous. Why? There's blood, right? That's why there's blood. So you're going to start now cooling down that immune system and rebuilding the gut. That's going to take time. Every animal is different. Every person is different. People with IBS take different times. Lots of studies on people with IBS. We need to do more studies on animals.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of my studies come from humans because that's where the money is. That's where people are putting their research dollars, right? It'll get there. But it takes time. But really, honestly, what we know from research and what we know from our experience here at Carnivore is that it doesn't take as long as you might think to heal that gut. If you stop with poking it, okay, so you're going to take out the extruded food, you're going to take out anything processed for the moment, anything extruded, right? Just calm it right down there. You're going to feed a concentrated mixture of native probiotics like the Fluorophore ground sprouted seeds. Beautiful product, if I say so myself.
Oh, we love it. We love it.
I'm glad. It's near and dear to my heart because it's so nutritious. It's not processed in any way. It's organic, human grade. We put it in our smoothies every day.
I know, I've had it. It's great.
Right? Put it in your oatmeal, your yogurt. I've prescribed it to so many of my patients. Mix it with some goat's milk or some other non-pasteurized calming substance like that, and feed that to your animal in between the other protein-rich meals that you're going to need to feed to that animal. You will see within days a calming of those symptoms. They're not going to go away completely. And like every healing journey, it has its ups and downs, but you will see a calming. And for some people, that's such a relief. Just, oh my God, okay, we're on the right road. And you have to keep that up for a little while. I would say really heavy doses of very rich probiotics. So fermented foods, like maybe fermented goat's milk plus sprouted foods like the Flora 4-gram sprouted seeds, mix those together. And for some poor animals, that's all they can eat for the first like 4 days, right? But there's protein, omega-3 fatty acids, carbs. It's almost a perfect food. It's a great food for weaning a puppy or helping a sick animal that can't digest. Yep, we've used it lots and lots for that because it is a whole food, right? It's got all those nutrients. No animal's going to want to survive on that forever. I mean, but it's a great pablum. It's a great sick dog, young dog, old dog food, and it's great for those animals that they can't eat alligator now. Like, how many unique proteins are you going to introduce to this?
Well, that's the problem. I get these forms, my holistic consultation forms that people fill out, and they list all the proteins they've tried, and I just look at it and say, oh my gosh, you've found 30 different proteins, and this animal is reacting to every single one of them. And you've been to 20 different specialists and no one has solved this problem. And, the owners are frustrated and the animals feel terrible, but the owners also tend to freak out when we go to something different. And, and they're not instantly better, or, we're 4 or 5 days in and they're still pooping terrible things or not wanting to eat well. I have had dogs. We've had a couple allergy shepherds that have done a 60-day goat milk fast. And it works beautifully if you're using the fermented raw milk. It works beautifully because when I did that one dog, it was before I started using the Flora 4, and looking back on it, man, that would have been a really good thing to add.
Yep. It really boosts whatever you're doing. It will boost it just because it's so simple. It's so simple. And the body, the immune system, recognizes good bacteria. Yay, bring it on, it's saying.
So if we give all those good bacteria, basically they are going to grow in such good numbers. Then what happens to the bad guys?
They're going to train the immune system. They're going to retrain the immune system to say, we are the good guys, okay? Look for other guys, don't look for us. The immune system's going to say, got it, because you guys are rebuilding the mucous membrane in the intestinal lining that you live in. I can see this is going to be good for my host, for my body. Great. So it's going to retrain the immune system as it is rebuilding the gut lining, as it is helping those ulcers to cure, which of course takes time. This is all part of the process, and every animal is going to have their own timeline on it. But yes, you're right. People freak out because I think in our culture, we have I want it now. Give me a pill, make the headache go away, you know, and oh, little fun fact, there's some studies that talk about the gut-brain connection and training the body, there's some Chinese studies that show that there are certain strains of lactobacillus that actually inhibit pain response. Talk about, right? It's amazing. Little fun fact there, because there's so many with these.
Well, we've got new studies that have come out in the last year showing the connection between behavior problems and the microbiome, because it does affect that blood-brain barrier, and there's definitely a connection. Migraines, the people that I've worked with in the past, I've never suffered from migraines, but people that do, I look at their diet and I say, you might want to make some changes there, because I think it would have a huge effect on those headaches.
There are lots and lots more studies showing that, well, first of all, the gut has its own enteric nervous system. There's another thing about the intestines I didn't even get a chance to mention. It actually has its own enteric nervous system. There is a unique system of nerves that detect what's going on in the body, all over the body, not just in its own little intestinal system. And then that enteric nervous system cooperates through the microbes who talk to each other in the brain. The brain is surrounded by a hard skull and a blood-brain barrier that you've just mentioned. So not everything gets in there as it should be, right? It's got to be protected. But we think of the brain as the control center. There's another control center in the gut. And there are many studies showing that it affects how we feel. Like I said about the serotonin, it's made in the gut. So the enteric system, the enteric brain system, if you will, in the gut is unique. And if the vagus nerve is cut, here's some other fun facts. If the vagus nerve is cut, the gut will still continue to do its thing. It does not need this brain to function. It's so important to the life of the body that it does not need this brain to function, but this brain needs the gut to function, because the gut will send its messengers from its enteric system into the brain and say, hey, that lady drank too much, about an hour ago, vomit center, get ready. It's the enteric gut system that tells the brain, oh, I need to vomit before I poison myself. I need to get this out of the stomach. Isn't that fascinating? And this, so talking about an animal whose immune system is on fire, whose immune system needs complete retraining now, like there's this whole brain down there. I know it sounds kind of crazy, but nervous system that is directing all this. So you send in the good bacteria through sprouted foods, fermented foods, cultured foods. Those bacteria have a job to do. The immune system says, okay, recognizing these guys have been good in the past. Okay, not going to attack them. Those good guys go to work. Now you get a bad guy. For example, what makes a bad, let's just define this for a sec. What is a bad bacteria, right? Like, what is a bad bacteria? A bad bacteria is a bacterium that's only in it for itself. There are certain strains of H. pylori, for example, and there are different strains of H. pylori, and H. pylori is in all of us, dogs, cats, humans, or it's in all of us, just like Candida. But there are certain strains of H. pylori that have these proteins that allow it to poke the stomach lining. It has the ability literally little sharp little pokers, these antenna-like things that can scrape and scratch the stomach, which of course, if you have injuries, then you get ulcers. And in addition to that, the byproducts of that particular strain of H. pylori are an irritant once it's got the little scratch. And this is how it survives, right? It is able to reproduce itself because then it can cause an infection. Then you have an ulcer, right? So a bad bacteria is in it only for itself. A good bacteria wants to cooperate with you, wants to cooperate with your intestines, no trouble. Let's see, I'll help you make vitamin K in exchange for you not killing me. The immune system says heal. Bad bacteria like, I don't know about you, but I'm just going to take over here. I don't really care about you. My waste products are acidic, let's just say. And we know acidity, that's a whole nother webinar. Acidity, you don't want too much acidity, right? Because that creates all kinds of conditions that can breed infections and cancer and all that stuff. But the waste product of the bad bacterium will do that. It's too acidic. It's not right. The body doesn't like it. It's going to push the pH of the blood too acidic. These are the ones that white blood cell says, we got to keep an eye on this one, because if it gets past this mucus layer, we have to kill it. And that's what they'll do. So bad bacteria is just in it for themselves. Candida, this is a good example. Candida is in every living creature. We all have a little bit of it. It's usually pretty cooperative, but if it breaches its borders, it is not supposed to be in the small intestine. It's only supposed to be in the large intestine. But if you eat a ton of sugar, or if the animal's diet is really heavily processed, full of very poor quality grains, literal sugars, highly processed, so that there's not a lot of good solid nutrition in there, Candida is going to grow and grow. It loves sugar and it loves acidity. And the more processed food you put into a body, the more acidic the body gets, right? That's just one example. So Candida is then going to breach the border, and it's going to go too high up in the large intestine. It might even reach the small intestine. That's when you get the furry tongue, and that's when you get all those awful symptoms of Candida.
Which
You
is a
have
yeast.
overgrowth, which is a yeast, right? You have an overgrowth of this microbe in your system. It's a turf worm. Now the body's got to say, okay, we got too much of this. How do we fight this? How do you get that? You have to kill the Candida by starving it. And then you have to put in the good bacteria that are literally going to crowd it out. So then that Candida has become a bad a bad microbe, let's say.
Right.
Not all yeasts are bad. You know that I know we often think yeast, yeast overgrowth because there's so much Candida overgrowth. There's a really interesting one. What is the name of it? I have it in my notes here. Saccharomyces boulardii.
Saccharomyces, yeah. Yep.
That is a good yeast. That is a helpful microbe. It happens to be a yeast that does good things for the body. So you want that one, but you don't want any of these microbes to take over and grow beyond their boundaries, including into the bloodstream, because then the immune system has to kill them all, right?
So this is I've got a couple of other questions based on all of that. So yes, we could feed these animals or ourselves sprouted, fermented, or cultured foods. Where do fecal transplants fall into that? And do you think that fecal transplants must be given rectally, or do they work orally? And do we have to tube slurries, or do they work in a capsule form? That was like 7 questions in one.
That's so fun. Veterinarians have been doing fecal transplants for decades, and human medical doctors are only just discovering fecal transplants, but the vets got on this a long, long time ago. And from my understanding, fecal transplants can be given either orally or anally. Like they can either way, because it's been purified, so to speak, right? You're not putting literal unpurified poop in anyone. It's been purified. And then you've got this mini microbiome from a healthy animal that you're then transplanting into an animal that needs that boost for whatever reason. And my understanding, I have never done a fecal transplant and I'm not a veterinarian, but my understanding is from my research that it can go through the mouth, it can go through either direction. It will end up where that microbe or that collection of microbes needs to colonize, which is the large intestine. So I would think logically, if it's a very, very sick animal and has no ability to digest or process, that an anal transplant, a fecal anal transplant would be faster, because there are those very, very thin cell walls in the rectum that allow medications and other microbes and medications to actually be absorbed into the bloodstream.
Yeah,
right?
huge absorption going on there.
Huge absorption. So I would think you could do it either way, though.
Okay. Now, we didn't touch on prebiotics. What is a prebiotic, and what does that have to do with our probiotics and our microbiome?
People get confused a lot because prebiotics just means food that feeds good bacteria or good microbes. Good microbes. I always say bacteria, but what I mean is microbes. So even those good, Saccharomyces, those other good yeasts. So prebiotics are things that the good microbes will feast on in order to grow and colonize your large intestine and train your immune system and make vitamin K and all that good stuff. So what are some examples? Mostly they're in the fiber family. So fiber, natural fiber, like the hulls of brown rice. This is why you should eat whole brown rice. And if you're going to feed rice to an animal, it should be brown rice so that you get the prebiotics in the hull of that rice grain. The hulls of fruit, so whole fruit. So if you're eating an apple or you're feeding an apple, make it a whole apple so that you get the hull, right? You get the skin. Fiber is the main thing, but doing more and more research on this, there are actually different plant families that the good bacteria like the Compositae plant family, and the Liliaceae family. Liliaceae, onions, garlic, these are in the Liliaceae plant family. Most of the good bacteria really like plants in the Liliaceae family. And I'm sure, Judy, if we were to look into this, which we would both love to do, we would find that through millennia, these plants somehow fostered an environment so that those good bacteria in nature could thrive. And when the animal ate the onion tops or the garlic tops that they would get, or actually the bulbs if they dug them out, would be healthy. And that starts the whole chain reaction of healthy food, healthy animal, healthy soil, healthy food, right? Which is so important. So the Liliaceae family, the Compositae family, I'm trying to think, sunflowers, endive, these are in the Compositae family. These are some, so sunflower seeds or sunflower oil. Sunflower seeds would probably be a good seed to sprout and feed to the probiotics, kind of, right? I mean, I don't actually know that. I think I just made that up, but I'm going to look into that because that makes total sense. If the Compositae family is a good prebiotic, that might make sense. I got to get my lab working on that because I'm, like
Oh boy, there's going to be something new in the fluorophore.
It's true. There's always something to learn. You know, I've been in this gig for so long. 35 years ago, I started a little raw foods, you know, company. Everybody laughed at me and my partner. They thought, first, nobody's going to buy organic. Who's going to eat raw food? Nobody has time for that, right? People laughed at me. And I'm not saying I'm having the last laugh, but things have changed quite a bit in 35 years. And now we all understand that there needs to be a mix. Like the best thing you can do for your animal is to feed a whole foods diet. And that means that some of that food's got to be fresh. There's no getting around it. But then, you know, carnivore is there for when you forget to thaw, or if you want to add quick baked, air dried, like just minimally processed food because you're in a hurry, or because you need to supplement, or because it's the only thing your animal ate, or whatever. There's lots of good reasons.
Oh yeah.
It can be a mixture.
Boy, I had another question and it just went right out of
it. Answered all 7 questions about the prebiotics. It
went right out of my brain. Oh man. Oh, I know what it was. So, and I know this is about 6 hours of lectures, but I'm going to see what I can pull out of you in a minute. So we're seeing a lot more allergies, a lot more IBD. And I think a lot of it has to do with immune systems that are screwed up from over-vaccination, immune systems that are screwed up from highly processed foods. But we're also seeing an overwhelming amount of cancer, particularly in our dogs.
Yep.
And your quick take on how is this poor gut microbiome playing into the explosion of cancer cases that we're seeing?
Yeah, like you said, that's like another 6-hour webinar. However, off the top, cancer is the end result of that immune system being on fire for a very long time, right? Ultimately, the inability of the cell to turn off, to die, right? The cell that says, nope, ain't gonna die. That is an immune system response that's kind of way on the far end. And what we see is that being, that body, that immune system has been so provoked either by trauma, by chronic injury. And chronic injury happens when we day after day after day don't put the right foodstuffs in, or, you know, an animal that's living with chronic stress. So they've got this mucus lining of the intestine that can never heal. So now the lining of the intestine has gotten thinner and thinner, and it's gotten ulcerous, and there's bleeding in the stools. And now all those bad microbes are just making their way into the bloodstream, wreaking havoc. Microbes play a role in cancer. I am not a specialist in this, so I can't describe exactly how, but I'm absolutely certain that if I had 10 years to study it, I would find that link, because microbes play a role in good health. They also play a role in bad health. And cancer is sort of I think of it as sort of the ultimate immune system negative response. Like, okay, forget it, right?
Can't do it anymore.
Is it curable? You can rebalance the body. And I would say you have to start rebalancing the gut. You have to start in the gut. You have to give your microbiome a fighting chance, because like we've said through this whole 45, 50 minutes, oh my gosh, it's been almost an hour already. The immune system learns from the microbiome. So those good bacteria have to be there in huge numbers. We have to feed them with the prebiotics. We have to lower the stress. We have to figure out what it is our animal is suffering from. Is it a situational thing? Is it a trauma thing? Is it a food thing? Probably a collection of all of it. And it's so sad because that when we hit cancer, then we know there's something that has just gone beyond, and
Right.
the immune system has turned on itself, and now we've got to get that back. And it happens. I have a friend who had breast cancer after an injury to the breast, right? An injury, like it literally almost got chopped off in a bike accident. And I know, right? It happened years ago. And then, 15 years later, she's diagnosed with, she's fine, right? And she called me up and I said, think back, your history, because she's super healthy, super fit, not even 50. What's going on? And she goes, oh my God, where that lump was found is right where I nearly severed. And I said, trauma. So trauma takes many forms.
It
right?
does. My sister actually was diagnosed with breast cancer, and she had broken her clavicle falling off a horse when she was 13. And guess where the cancer showed up?
Yeah.
So that energy never got redirected. That area never got healed. And then we got that stagnation in that area, and there was a block there. And, luckily she did very well with it as well. But we have to think about all of those things in the history, and we didn't talk about homeopathy at all. And I'm not a homeopath, and I really respect those of you who are, but that is one of the really cool things about homeopathy and even Chinese medicine. The things that we ask in the history, because we need a picture of the entire animal. So we're asking things about behavior and where they sleep and, what they eat, and do they pant a lot, and what color's their tongue. And we ask questions that a traditional doctor or veterinarian does not ask, because they're just honing in on, hey, you've got that sore on your face. I'm going to treat that sore on your face. They don't look at, well, what caused it to be there?
I'm quite sure no other doctor asked that poor woman the traumatic history of her physical breast.
Yeah,
right?
I'm sure they never did.
Oh my God, you're so young. And then they did all this genetic testing and there was no genetic background. And I'm like, okay, then you had to have some trauma. Light bulb goes on. Oh yeah, that was the breast and nearly got lopped off. Well, and trauma, just to close things a little bit, because I know we're running out of time, cancer is the result of some sort of trauma, either to the entire system through the intestines and the injury to the microbiome, if you will, or just even a small injury like your collarbone incident or the breast incident. So can we recover? Yes. Always have hope. Always have hope for every being that's got any kind of IBS or chronic nastiness or immune system on fire or cancer. We must never lose hope. Focus on the microbiome. That'd be my advice. Focus on the microbiome and start there first.
Okay, Maria, as usual, you are a wealth of information. I love spending time with you. I'm going to have Hugh start up our music. And those of you who have been tuned in, I haven't been able to see anything because I had to turn off my Facebook feed. We'll see, hopefully, most of you back at 1 o'clock with Susan Thixton and Cole Harrington. Get Schooled, the truth about pet food. That one, there should be some sparks and fireworks flying. I really look forward to those two. They're fun, they're funny, and they are on fire about pet food integrity, of which a lot is lacking. Unless you go to the good companies, the ones that we talk about. Carnivore happens to be one of them. I'm not a dry kibble fan, but carnivore is actually on my list of foods I would actually feed my pets. So that says a lot, because you guys know I'm really, really picky. And the Flora4 sprouted seed product, we absolutely love. It's been flying off the shelves. And if you have a pet who is struggling with gut issues and microbiome problems, I would strongly recommend that you add that to their regimen, and let's see if we can get more of these animals healed. Maria, thank you so much.
Very very welcome. It was great fun as usual, Judy.
Absolutely.
All righty.